Her name is Margaret, a 64-year-old woman with a kind heart and unshakable strength. After losing her husband young, she raised her only son, Ethan, alone working endless shifts at a local diner to keep their small house and secure his future. Every sacrifice she made was out of love and duty, building a life grounded in resilience and quiet pride. But years later, that same son and his ambitious wife would betray her. Trying to claim the home she had fought so hard to keep, they underestimated one thing: Margaret's will to protect what was hers. Now, let me tell you her story, in her own words.
The scent of cinnamon and pine filled my dining room that Christmas evening, mixing with the golden glow of candlelight dancing across familiar faces. I stood in my kitchen doorway, watching my son Ethan carve the turkey while his wife Lily arranged the side dishes with theatrical precision. At 64, I had learned to treasure these moments, the sound of laughter echoing through rooms that had known too much silence, the warmth of family gathered around the table I had set for holidays for over 30 years. My heart swelled as I watched Ethan's hands work the carving knife. The same gentle hands I had bandaged after playground scrapes, the same hands I had guided to write his first letters. He looked so much like his father in the soft light, with those same kind eyes and that careful way of moving when he was concentrating. For a fleeting moment, everything felt perfect. My small family was whole again. "Mom, come sit," Ethan called, gesturing to the head of the table. "You've done enough work for one day." I settled into my chair, the same spot where I had helped him with homework, where we had shared countless meals when it was just the two of us. The conversation flowed easily: work stories, neighborhood gossip, memories of Christmases past. Lily spoke animatedly about their new apartment, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. I found myself relaxing, letting the familiar rhythm of family dinner wash over me. But as we moved to dessert, something shifted. Lily's voice took on a different tone, sharper somehow, more deliberate. She set down her fork and looked directly at me, her smile never wavering. "Margaret," she said, her voice cutting through the gentle chatter like a blade through silk, "this house will soon be mine." The words hung in the air like smoke from a snuffed candle. The room fell silent except for the soft tick of the grandfather clock in the corner, the clock my husband had wound every Sunday for 20 years before his death. I felt my heart stop, then race, my hands growing cold against the warm ceramic of my coffee cup. My mouth opened, but no sound came. I looked around the table at the faces of my neighbors and friends, all frozen in uncomfortable silence. Their eyes darted between Lily and me, unsure where to look, what to say. The humiliation burned in my chest like acid. I turned to Ethan, searching his face for shock, for denial, for anything that would tell me this was some cruel joke. Instead, I found him staring at his plate, his jaw tight, his silence cutting deeper than any words could have. And in that moment, I realized my son had already chosen a side. But looking back now, I should have seen the signs much earlier. The foundation of this betrayal had been laid years before, built on my own sacrifices and buried beneath my unconditional love. I was 28 when my husband died, leaving me with a 5-year-old boy and a mortgage that seemed impossible to manage alone. I can still remember the weight of that first month, sitting at this very table with bills spread before me like accusatory letters, trying to figure out how to keep our home. The house wasn't grand, a modest 2-story with creaking floors and windows that needed replacing, but it was ours. It was where Ethan had taken his first steps, where his father had read him bedtime stories, where every corner held a memory of the life we had built together. I took a job at the local diner, working the morning shift before Ethan woke, then rushing home to get him ready for school. When he was old enough, I added evening shifts, leaving him with Mrs. Peterson next door. The money was never enough. There were nights I lay awake calculating and recalculating, robbing Peter to pay Paul, stretching dollars until they screamed. When Ethan showed promise in school, I knew I had to find a way to give him more. I took out a second mortgage to pay for his college tutoring, worked double shifts to cover his textbooks and fees. My hands grew rough from washing dishes. My feet ached from standing for hours, but every sacrifice felt like an investment in his future. I told myself it was temporary, that someday, when he was successful, we would laugh about these lean years together. The house became more than just shelter. It became the symbol of everything I had fought to preserve. Every payment I made, every repair I managed on my own. Every small improvement I saved for it, all went into these walls, into this foundation that I believed would outlast me and belong to my son. I remember the day Ethan brought Lily home for the first time. She was beautiful in that polished way that comes with good breeding and expensive clothes. She walked through my home with careful steps, her eyes taking in every detail with what I mistook for appreciation. Over dinner, she asked thoughtful questions about the neighborhood, about the history of the house, about how long we had lived here. "It must be worth quite a lot now," she had said with that same bright smile. "Property values in this area have really taken off." I had laughed it off then, flattered that she found our modest home valuable. I even told her about the renovations I had planned, the small improvements I had been saving for. She listened intently, nodding and asking more questions about property taxes, about whether the house was fully paid off, about my plans for the future. There was something in her eyes that day, a calculating gleam that I pushed aside as imagination. She was young, ambitious, practical qualities I admired. If only I had listened to that tiny voice of unease when she smiled that day, the voice that whispered warnings I was too hopeful to heed. The week leading up to that Christmas dinner had felt magical. Ethan and Lily arrived on a snowy Tuesday, their arms full of presents and their faces bright with holiday excitement. I had spent days preparing, polishing silver that rarely saw use, ironing the good tablecloth, making sure every corner of the house reflected the love I felt for my family. We decorated the tree together, just like when Ethan was small. I watched him hang ornaments I had kept from his childhood, the crooked star he made in first grade, the painted pinnacone from Boy Scouts, the tiny photo frame holding a picture of him and his father. Lily documented everything with her phone, exclaiming over the sweetness of each memory, asking me to tell her the story behind every decoration. "You've kept so much history in this house," she said, her arm around Ethan's waist as they posed by the tree. "It's like a museum of your family's life." Those words should have warmed me, but something in her tone made me pause. The way she said "your family's life," as if she were observing from outside, cataloging rather than belonging. During that week, I began noticing things, whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room, papers that Lily quickly shuffled into folders when I brought them coffee, the way they both became suddenly interested in my health, asking detailed questions about my doctor visits, my medications, my energy levels. "Mom, have you thought about what would happen if you got sick?" Ethan asked one evening as we sat by the fire. "I mean, this house is a lot of work for one person. Are you feeling all right?" Lily added, her voice full of concern. "You seem a little more tired lately, more forgetful." I assured them I was fine, that 64 wasn't ancient, that I had many good years left in me. But their questions planted seeds of doubt. Was I forgetting more? Was I struggling more with the house maintenance? I found myself second-guessing every small mistake, every moment of confusion. They offered to help with various tasks around the house, but their help came with suggestions. Maybe I should consider downsizing. Maybe I should think about making some financial arrangements while I was still sharp enough to handle them. Maybe I should talk to a lawyer about estate planning. "It's just being responsible," Ethan explained when I hesitated. "Dad would have wanted you to have everything organized, wouldn't he?" The mention of his father always weakened my resolve. Yes, my husband would have wanted me to be practical, to think ahead. So I agreed to consider their suggestions, to think about the future, to be responsible about my legacy. But even as I nodded and smiled, something cold settled in my stomach. The way they looked at each other when they thought I wasn't watching. The way their voices dropped when they discussed arrangements. The way Lily's eyes moved over my furniture, my belongings, as if she were already measuring them for her own space. Still, I convinced myself I was being paranoid. This was my son, my loving boy who had sent me flowers on Mother's Day every year since he was 18. This was the child I had sacrificed everything for, who called me every Sunday, who had never given me reason to doubt his love. The Christmas dinner was meant to be a celebration of our family, of the traditions we had built together. I had planned every detail, from the cranberry sauce recipe that had been his father's favorite to the special china that only came out for holidays. I wanted everything to be perfect, to show them how much their presence meant to me, how grateful I was to have them home. Her next words would strip every illusion I'd clung to. "Margaret, this house will soon be mine." The sentence echoed in my mind as the room fell silent. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, feel the blood draining from my face. My hands began to tremble as I set down my coffee cup. the delicate clink of china against saucer, unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. "What did you say?" My voice came out as barely a whisper. Lily's smile never faltered. If anything, it grew brighter, more confident. "I said this house will soon be mine." "Well, ours," she corrected, glancing at Ethan. As soon as the paperwork clears, the words hit me like physical blows. I looked around the table at my guests, Mrs. Peterson from next door, my cousin Ruth, the Hendersons from down the street hall, sitting frozen with their forks halfway to their mouths, their eyes wide with shock and embarrassment. "I don't understand," I said, though part of me was beginning to understand all too clearly. "What paperwork?" Lily's eyes glittered with something that made my stomach turn. "The estate planning documents, Margaret, the ones we've been discussing. Ethan explained it all to you, remember? About transferring the house into joint ownership. For tax purposes." My head spun as I tried to process her words. Joint ownership, tax purposes. I looked at Ethan, willing him to speak, to deny this nightmare, to explain that this was all some terrible misunderstanding. Instead, he continued staring at his plate, his face flushed red with what I hoped was shame. When he finally looked up, his eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Mom," he said quietly, his voice thick with something I couldn't identify. "We talked about this, about making sure everything is handled properly. Handled properly." My voice rose, cracking with disbelief. "You mean stolen? You mean taken from me while I'm still alive to see it?" "It's not stealing," Lily interjected smoothly. "It's smart planning. You're getting older, Margaret. This house is becoming too much for you. We're just making sure it stays in the family." The casual cruelty of her words took my breath away. Too much for me. I had maintained this house for 36 years, through widowhood, through financial hardship, through every challenge life had thrown at me. I had scraped and saved to keep every single payment current, had learned to fix leaky faucets and patch drywall, had painted and cleaned and cared for every inch of this home. "This is my house," I said, my voice stronger now, anger beginning to burn through the shock. "I have paid for it with 36 years of my life. I have earned every brick, every board, every nail. Of course, it's your house, Mom," Ethan said finally, but his words felt hollow, rehearsed. "We're not taking it away from you. We're just protecting it. For everyone's benefit." The betrayal was complete. Not just Lily's greed, but Ethan's complicity. My son, my only child, the boy I had given everything for, was sitting at my table, in front of my friends, justifying their attempt to steal my home from under me. Mrs. Peterson cleared her throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps this is a conversation better had in private," she suggested gently. But Lily shook her head, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Oh no, there's nothing private about it. Margaret wants transparency in her affairs, don't you, Margaret? That's why we're handling everything properly, legally, with witnesses." The humiliation burned through me like fire. She was using my own guests as witnesses to my powerlessness, my son's betrayal. They had planned this moment, calculated it, chosen this public setting to trap me, to make their claim in front of people who could confirm that I had been confused or agreeable to their plans. I stood up from the table, my legs shaking but my voice steady. "I want you both to leave. Now." "Mom, please," Ethan started, but I cut him off. "Now," I repeated, my tone leaving no room for argument. They left, but not before Lily placed a folder on the table. "The documents are all here when you're ready to be reasonable," she said. "We'll give you some time to think it over." After the door closed behind them, my guests helped me clear the table in uncomfortable silence. Their kind words and gentle touches felt like pity, which somehow made everything worse. When they finally left, I was alone with the ruins of my Christmas dinner and the devastating realization of how completely I had been betrayed that night. I didn't sleep, I plotted. I sat in my bedroom, holding the photograph of my husband that I kept on my nightstand. His kind eyes looked back at me from behind the glass, the same eyes I had seen in our son's face for 39 years. What would he think of the man Ethan had become? What would he say about this betrayal, this greed, this casual cruelty disguised as concern? The tears came then, hot and angry and heartbroken. I cried for the son I thought I knew, for the future I had imagined, for the trust that lay shattered like fine china on the floor. I cried for every sacrifice I had made, every hardship I had endured, every dream I had deferred, all for a child who could sit at my table and plot to steal my home. But as the night wore on, grief began to harden into something else, something stronger, more focused. If they thought they could manipulate a lonely old woman, if they believed I would simply roll over and let them take everything I had worked for, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The next morning, I called my friend Grace. We had known each other for over 20 years, ever since our children had played together in this very house. What Ethan and Lily didn't know was that Grace had retired from a successful career as an estate attorney, and she owed me more than a few favors after I had helped her through her own difficult divorce. "Margaret," Grace said when I finished explaining the situation, her voice tight with anger. "Those documents they prepared, do you have copies?" I pulled out the folder Lily had left behind. Grace's face grew darker as she read through the papers. "This is worse than I thought," she said finally. "They've structured this as a joint family trust with them as trustees. Essentially, you would sign over ownership while retaining only the right to live in the house until your death. But as trustees, they could make any decisions they wanted about the property, including selling it out from under you if they claimed it was in your best interest." The calculated nature of their betrayal hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a spur of a moment grab for money. They had researched, planned, consulted with lawyers. They had spent months, maybe longer, figuring out how to legally steal my home while making it look like responsible estate planning. "Can they force me to sign?" I asked. Grace's smile was sharp as a blade. "Not if you're mentally competent, which you clearly are. But Margaret, if you want to fight this, we need to be smart about it. They've shown their hand, but they don't know you've shown it to me. What do you suggest? We rewrite your will, your estate plan, everything. We make it ironclad, and we do it quietly. Then we let them hang themselves with their own greed. If they wanted a war, they'd get one signed, sealed, and legal." Grace and I spent the next week crafting what she called the perfect trap. We rewrote my entire estate plan, transferring the house into an irrevocable trust that would benefit any future grandchildren exclusively, with strict provisions preventing anyone from forcing a sale or transfer during my lifetime. The trust was bulletproof, designed to thwart exactly the kind of manipulation Ethan and Lily were attempting. But the legal protection was only part of our plan. If they wanted to play games, I would give them a performance they would never forget. I called Ethan the next day, my voice carefully modulated to sound confused and tired. "Sweetheart," I said, "I've been thinking about what you and Lily said at dinner. Maybe you're right. Maybe I am getting too old to handle everything on my own." The relief in his voice was palpable. "Oh, Mom, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. Lily and I just want what's best for you." "I know, darling, but I'm still a little confused about all the legal terminology. Could we meet again? Maybe I could have my doctor there too, just to make sure I understand everything clearly." "Of course, Mom, whatever makes you comfortable." I scheduled a visit with Dr. Harrison, my physician of 15 years, explaining the situation and asking for his help. He was appalled by what they were attempting and agreed to play along with my plan. During the appointment, I made sure to mention feeling overwhelmed by financial decisions and grateful for my son's guidance, all while Dr. Harrison documented my perfect mental competency in my medical records. Meanwhile, Grace helped me set up discrete recording devices throughout my house. Every conversation, every visit, every attempt at manipulation would be documented. I learned to be an actress in my own home, playing the part of a declining woman, while carefully gathering evidence of their fraud. Ethan and Lily visited twice during those 2 weeks, each time growing more confident that their plan was working. They brought revised documents, spoke to me in increasingly condescending tones, and made increasingly bold statements about their house and their plans for the property. "We're thinking of renovating the kitchen first," Lily said during one visit, walking through my home as if she already owned it. "These old cabinets are so dated, and we'll definitely need to update the bathrooms." "Of course, Mom, you'll always have a place here," Ethan added quickly. "We're not throwing you out. We're just modernizing." I nodded and smiled, playing my part perfectly while the hidden cameras captured every word, every gesture, every calculated moment of their deception. During their final visit, Lily couldn't contain her excitement. "Margaret, once you sign these papers, you won't have to worry about anything anymore. We'll handle all the finances, all the decisions. You can just relax and enjoy your retirement." "And what if I change my mind?" I asked innocently. "Oh, you won't," Lily said with absolute confidence. "Trust me, once you see how much easier your life becomes, you'll wonder why you waited so long." They thought they were deceiving me, but I was the one setting the stage. 2 weeks after that humiliating Christmas dinner, I invited them back for what I called the signing dinner. I told them I was ready to finalize everything, that I had made peace with their plan, that I just wanted to get the paperwork completed so we could move forward as a family. They arrived with barely contained excitement, Lily carrying an expensive bottle of champagne to celebrate our new arrangement. I had prepared a simple meal, nothing elaborate, nothing that would distract from the main event. The hidden cameras were rolling as we sat down to eat. Grace had positioned herself in my kitchen, officially present as a notary public, though they didn't yet understand her true role in the evening's events. After dinner, I brought out a folder of documents. "I've had everything reviewed by my attorney," I said, my voice shaking slightly, though not from fear. She helped me understand all the legal language. Ethan's face tensed slightly. "You hired an attorney, Mom? That wasn't necessary. We could have explained anything you didn't understand." "Oh, she was very helpful," I said sweetly. "She made sure I understood exactly what I was signing." I handed them the first document. Lily's eyes lit up as she saw what appeared to be a property transfer agreement. She and Ethan exchanged glances, barely able to contain their triumph. Should we read through this together?" Ethan asked, though his eagerness was obvious. "Grace has already notarized everything," I said, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Grace, could you come explain the documents to Ethan and Lily?" Grace entered the dining room with a formal expression, carrying her notary stamp and official seal. "Good evening," she said to them. "I'm Grace Williams, Margaret's attorney and the notary for tonight's proceedings." Lily's smile faltered slightly. "Attorney, I thought you were just notarizing some simple estate planning documents." "Oh, these documents are quite comprehensive," Grace said, opening her briefcase. "Margaret, would you like to explain to your son and daughter-in-law what they're actually signing?" The confusion on their faces was palpable. "What we're signing?" Ethan asked. "Mom, I thought we were here for you to sign the trust documents." I looked at them both, these two people who had sat at my table and plotted to steal my life's work, and felt a calm satisfaction settle over me. "Oh, you misunderstood," I said gently. "You're not here to receive anything. You're here to acknowledge what you've attempted to take." Grace opened the first document and began to read. "This is a sworn statement acknowledging the fraudulent attempt by Ethan Margaret Morrison and Lily Ann Morrison to coerce the property owner, Margaret Elizabeth Morrison, into signing over her property under false pretenses of estate planning." Lily's face went white. "What?" "The document details your conversations over the past month," Grace continued, "including your statements about claiming ownership of Mrs. Morrison's property, your attempts to manipulate her through concerns about her mental capacity, and your plans to gain control of her assets through deceptive legal arrangements." "This is insane," Lily said, standing up from the table. "We never— "Oh, but you did," I interrupted softly. "Every word, every visit, every manipulation has been recorded, including tonight." Grace gestured toward several small devices positioned around the room. "These proceedings are being documented as evidence of your continued attempts at elder fraud." The blood drained from Ethan's face as the full scope of what was happening hit him. "Mom, please, there's been a misunderstanding. We never meant you meant to steal my house," I said, my voice stronger now, filled with the power of truth. "You meant to manipulate me into signing away my home while pretending it was for my own good. You meant to rob me of everything I spent my life building." Lily looked frantically between me and Grace. "This is entrapment. You can't." "We can, and we have," Grace said calmly. "Mrs. Morrison is mentally competent, as confirmed by her physician. She is the legal owner of this property, and your attempts to defraud her have been thoroughly documented." "What happens now?" Ethan asked quietly, his voice barely audible. Grace closed her briefcase with a sharp snap. "Now, you leave. Mrs. Morrison's property is legally protected through an irrevocable trust. Any further attempts at coercion or manipulation will result in criminal charges." By the time they realized what I had done, it was already too late. Lily tried one last desperate gambit. "Margaret, please, be reasonable. We're family. Families work these things out." I looked at her, this woman who had smiled at my Christmas table while plotting to steal my home. "Family doesn't steal from family," I said quietly. "Family doesn't manipulate and deceive and humiliate the people they claim to love." She turned to Ethan, but he was staring at his hands, his face crumpled with what might have been shame or might have been anger at being caught. "Ethan," she hissed, "say something. This is your mother. Make her understand." He looked up at me then, and for just a moment, I saw the little boy I had raised, confused and lost and desperate. But then he spoke, and the words that came out of his mouth killed whatever maternal sympathy I had left. Mom, you're making a mistake. We were trying to help you. When you're older, when you really can't take care of yourself, what then? You'll have nowhere to go, no one to help you. The threat was clear, even wrapped in concern. Sign over the house now, or face abandonment later. It was the final proof that my son had become someone I no longer recognized. Then, I'll face that future with my dignity intact, I said, which is more than I can say for either of you. They left without another word, taking their champagne and their legal documents and their shattered plans. The house felt lighter somehow, as if a poisonous presence had been lifted from its walls. In the days that followed, the truth of what had happened spread through our small community like wildfire. Grace had advised me to be proactive, to share the recordings and documents with key people before Lily and Ethan could craft their own version of events. Lily's reputation crumbled like a house of cards. The story of her Christmas dinner announcement, captured on audio, circulated among Ethan's colleagues and family members. Her attempt to steal from an elderly widow, her calculated manipulation, her arrogant assumption that she could publicly claim another woman's home, it all painted a picture of greed and cruelty that shocked everyone who heard it. Ethan's co-workers began to see him differently. How could they trust a man who would betray his own mother? How could they respect someone who would stand silently while his wife humiliated the woman who had sacrificed everything for him? His reputation suffered, his relationships strained, his comfortable life began to unravel. Within a month, I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that Ethan had moved out of their apartment. Whether he left Lily or she threw him out, I didn't know and didn't care. The community that had once viewed them as a successful young couple now saw them for what they truly were. Lily made one final, desperate attempt to salvage her reputation. She appeared at my front door on a cold February morning, her face streaked with tears, her voice breaking with what sounded like genuine remorse. "Margaret, please," she sobbed. "I made a terrible mistake. I was wrong, so wrong. Please forgive me. Please let me make this right." I stood in my doorway, looking at this woman who had tried to steal my life, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "There is no making this right," I said calmly. "You showed me exactly who you are, Lily. I'm grateful I learned the truth before it was too late. But I love Ethan," she pleaded. "I love this family. I just wanted to belong, to be part of something permanent. By stealing it," I said, "by taking what didn't belong to you. That's not love, Lily. That's possession." I closed the door and walked away, leaving her crying on my front steps. The neighbors would talk, but they would talk about her desperation, her public breakdown, her failed attempt to manipulate sympathy from the woman she had tried to rob. Spring came early that year, and I spent long hours in my garden, tending to the flowers my husband had planted so many years ago. The house was quiet but not lonely. The silence felt peaceful rather than empty, clean rather than hollow. I had my home, my dignity, and my hard-won knowledge of who I could and could not trust. But one final visit from Ethan changed everything. He came on a warm April evening, when the cherry tree in my front yard was heavy with blossoms. I heard his car in the driveway but didn't hurry to answer the door. Let him wait, I thought. Let him remember what it feels like to stand outside, hoping for welcome from someone he had betrayed. When I finally opened the door, I barely recognized the man standing before me. Ethan looked older, thinner, worn down by months of consequences he had never expected to face. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair uncombed, his eyes red with exhaustion, or tears, or both. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking like a teenager's, "can I come in, please?" I stepped aside and let him enter, but I didn't offer him a seat. Didn't offer coffee, or comfort, or any of the maternal gestures that had once been automatic. "I left her," he said without preamble. "I left Lily. I should have done it months ago. Should have done it the moment she suggested." "What she suggested?" I waited, saying nothing. "I don't know how to explain what happened to me," he continued, his words tumbling out in a desperate rush. "I loved her so much, I thought if I gave her what she wanted, she would finally be happy. She was always talking about security, about planning for the future, about making sure we had stability. So you decided to steal my stability," I said quietly. He flinched as if I had slapped him. "Yes, God, Mom, yes. I was weak and stupid, and I let her convince me that we were doing the right thing, that we were protecting you. Protecting me from what? From making bad decisions, from being taken advantage of. He stopped, realizing how hollow his justifications sounded. From living in my own house, I finished for him. I'm sorry, he said, and the words came out as a sob. I'm so sorry, Mom. I don't know how to live with what I did to you. I don't know how to forgive myself. I looked at this broken man, this stranger who wore my son's face, and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. He was truly remorseful, truly ashamed, truly destroyed by the consequences of his choices. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. What you did, the betrayal, the humiliation, the casual cruelty of it all, it changed something in me, Ethan. It broke something that might never heal. I know, he whispered. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But you're still my son, I continued, the words surprising even me. You're still the little boy I raised, somewhere underneath all the poor choices and weaknesses. And maybe someday, if you prove that you've truly changed, if you show me that you understand the magnitude of what you tried to take from me, maybe we can find a way back to each other. He looked up at me with desperate hope. What would I have to do? You would have to earn it, I said firmly. Every day, for as long as it takes. You would have to show me through your actions, not your words, that you've become a man your father would be proud of. And you would have to accept that this house, this life I built, will never be yours. Not as inheritance, not as gift, not as anything. You gave up that right when you tried to steal it. I understand, he said quickly. I don't want the house, Mom. I never should have wanted it. I just want my mother back. Then you'll have to prove you deserve her, I said. He left that evening with no promises, no guarantees, no easy path to redemption, but he left with something he hadn't had in months. Hope. Whether he would prove worthy of that hope remained to be seen. As I watched his car disappear into the gathering darkness, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me to this moment. 6 months ago, I had been a trusting mother, secure in my son's love, naive about the depths of human greed. Tonight, I was something else entirely, a woman who had fought for what was hers and won, a mother who had learned to love with wisdom instead of blind faith, a person who had discovered strengths she never knew she possessed. The house around me felt different now, too. It was no longer just a building filled with memories. It had become a fortress, a testament to the power of preparation and the importance of standing up for what's right. Every room told a story not just of the life I had built, but of the battle I had fought to keep it. Some homes aren't built from bricks, they're built from the battles that saved them. This house had become more than my shelter. It had become my victory, my proof that love without boundaries is not love at all, but weakness dressed up in noble clothing. I had learned to love my son enough to let him face the consequences of his choices, to love myself enough to fight for what I had earned, and to love justice enough to ensure it was served. The cherry blossoms outside my window glowed pale in the moonlight, beautiful and ephemeral, reminding me that all things pass, betrayal and pain, but also love and redemption. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new choices, new opportunities to prove what kind of woman I had become. But tonight, in this house that I had saved through courage and cunning, I was content to be exactly who I was, a mother who had learned the difference between loving foolishly and loving well.